When asked, "How did you capture 11 soldiers all by yourself?" "I surrounded them." That's how Audie Murphy answered when asked how he single-handedly captured 11 German soldiers. But if you think that's savage, you haven't heard anything yet. Get ready, because what this man did next will blow your mind. It's the closing days of World War II, and while the Axis powers are on the ropes, their resolve is as fierce as ever. The German army is still making the Allies pay for every inch of ground, forcing them to fight tooth and nail through Europe's devastated landscapes. The scene is just outside the Vosges Mountains, where an American infantry platoon is locked in a brutal struggle. German soldiers, armed to the teeth, press forward with deadly precision, forcing the Americans back step by step. Among the Americans is a young man who barely stands at 5'5", but whose heart is far larger than his stature. This is Audie Murphy. As the Germans advance, American M10 tank destroyers lend their firepower to the defense. But the German anti-tank weapons, the dreaded Panzerschrecks, find their mark, and one by one, tank destroyers are taken out of the fight, their crews forced to abandon their burning vehicles. Chaos reigns, and the American platoon is on the verge of being overrun. But in the midst of the carnage, Murphy spots an opportunity. He knows that if the Germans aren't stopped here and now, his men are finished. Without hesitating, he orders his men to retreat to the safety of the woods behind them. Then, in an act of sheer audacity, he leaps atop a burning tank destroyer, manning its .50 caliber machine gun. Alone and exposed, he turns the tide of the battle. But how did this young man, who was once rejected by the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps for being too small and too young, end up here, standing alone against the might of the German war machine? Murphy's journey began just 2 years earlier. At only 16 years old and barely weighing 110 pounds soaking wet, Murphy was told repeatedly by military recruiters that he wasn't fit to fight. But the bombing of Pearl Harbor had left a deep mark on him, as it did on most Americans. Determined to serve his country, he faked his birth certificate with the help of his sister and was finally accepted into the Army on June 30th, 1942. Despite his small stature, Murphy quickly proved himself as a capable soldier. He earned the Marksman Badge with Rifle Component Bar and the Expert Badge with Bayonet Component Bar. When he was sent overseas, his journey to becoming one of the most decorated soldiers in American history began in the Mediterranean theater, acting as a platoon messenger in Algeria. Murphy's first taste of combat came during the assault landings in Sicily. The Allies were facing terrible weather conditions, so bad that German commanders had relaxed their defenses, thinking that no one would be insane enough to launch an amphibious assault. But the Allies did just that. Amidst the stormy seas and howling winds, Murphy and his comrades hit the beaches. The element of surprise was on their side, but the fighting was brutal. During a scouting patrol, Murphy encountered 2 fleeing Italian officers. Without hesitation, he shot and killed them. But just as he was beginning to make a name for himself, a severe illness sidelined him for a week in a field hospital. But nothing could keep him down for long. Back in action, Murphy landed in Salerno, where he and 2 other soldiers were ambushed by a German unit. They were outnumbered, and one of Murphy's comrades was killed instantly. But Murphy, armed with only hand grenades and a machine gun, fought back fiercely, killing all 5 Germans. Murphy's leadership on the battlefield didn't go unnoticed. He received a promotion to sergeant, and then, just a month later, to staff sergeant. By January 1944, he was still only 19 years old. The battles kept coming, and Murphy kept proving himself. During the assault on the Volturno line, he repelled a counterattack by 7 German soldiers, killing 3 and capturing 4. But the brutality of war was relentless. Murphy contracted malaria and was hospitalized again, this time for a week and a half. But as soon as he was well enough, he rejoined his men for the First Battle of Cisterna, a devastating defeat for the Allies. As he took shelter in an abandoned farmhouse, a German panzer discovered their position. Once again, Murphy acted with incredible bravery, crawling out alone and destroying the tank with rifle grenades. For this, he was awarded the Bronze Star with V device. The war raged on, and Murphy found himself on yet another landing craft, this time heading for the south of France. The Normandy invasion had been successful, but there was still much work to be done. As his landing craft hit the beach, Murphy and his platoon found themselves in a beautiful French vineyard, a brief moment of peace amidst the violence. But that peace was shattered as German infantry opened fire, wounding and killing several of his men. Murphy's squad's machine gunner was separated from his unit, and Murphy braved the storm of bullets to retrieve the weapon. With it, he returned fire, killing 2 Germans. But the battle was far from over. When 2 Germans appeared to surrender, Murphy's best friend approached them, only to be gunned down by Germans hiding inside a house. In a fit of rage, Murphy stormed the house alone, killing 6 Germans, wounding 2, and taking 11 prisoner. This was the moment that would make him famous, the moment when he surrounded 11 enemy soldiers. But the war didn't end there for Murphy. He was wounded by a mortar blast, the shrapnel cutting deep into his heel. But even with this injury, he returned to the front lines within weeks, earning a Silver Star for assaulting a German machine gun position, killing 4 and wounding 3. Just 3 days later, at Lomet in the Cleurie River Valley, Murphy directed his men in an assault on a heavily defended German hill, even as enemy fire rained down on him for over an hour. For this, he was awarded another bronze oak leaf cluster for his Silver Star and received a battlefield commission to second lieutenant. As the Allies pushed deeper into France, Murphy was ambushed by German snipers. He managed to capture 2 of them, but a third shot him in the hip. Despite the pain, Murphy spun around and put a bullet directly between the sniper's eyes. His bravery earned him his first bronze oak leaf cluster for his Purple Heart, but the injury forced him out of combat until January. But when he rejoined his men, the fighting had only intensified. The Colmar Pocket, near the Vosges Mountains, was one of the most brutal battles of the war. As German forces launched a fierce counterattack, Murphy's unit was caught out in the open. He knew they would be wiped out if they stayed where they were. Calling for fire support, Murphy directed M10 tank destroyers to engage the Germans, but one by one, they were destroyed. Then, in a scene that would be immortalized in history, Murphy did the unthinkable. He ordered his men to retreat to the woods behind them, staying behind to cover their escape. He spotted a .50 caliber machine gun atop a burning M10, and ignoring the flames and enemy fire, sprinted to the vehicle and began firing. For over an hour, he held off the Germans alone, killing or wounding 50 enemy soldiers and destroying several vehicles. Even after he was wounded in both legs, Murphy refused to leave his position until he ran out of ammunition. Only then did he crawl back to his men and lead them in a counterattack, securing the U.S. position. Murphy's incredible heroism that day earned him the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration in the United States. But the wounds he suffered that day ended his combat career. He was reassigned to regimental headquarters as an Army liaison officer, a well-deserved rest after years of relentless combat. Audie Murphy went on to become one of the most highly decorated soldiers in U.S. history. His bravery earned him not only American honors, but also awards from France and Belgium. After the war, he became a successful Hollywood actor, even starring in films about his wartime exploits. But his life was cut tragically short when he died in a plane crash on May 28, 1971. Today, his grave in Arlington National Cemetery remains one of the most visited, a testament to the incredible courage of the man who, when asked how he captured 11 German soldiers, simply replied, "I surrounded them." What do you think is the most heroic thing Audie Murphy has done? Comment down below and let us know your thoughts. Inspired by the extraordinary bravery of Audie Murphy, a true hero whose story we've just uncovered, your support ensures we continue to bring these remarkable stories to light. Don't let his legacy end here. Like and hit that subscribe button now, and be part of our quest to explore more incredible tales of valor and perseverance.